CBS Sports National College Football Analyst. Barrett Sallee, I hope all is well, man. Welcome into the game in T-Town.
Thanks for having me. I'm now officially confused as to what's going to be on your station over the course of the next 5 months.
Okay, yeah. For the I think it's only about 7 shows that actually impact us. 7 shows totally, I think is what it is. But yeah, so if you're a college baseball guy, it'll be on 102.9, and then we'll always be here. So we're here. I mean, I had to get that in because in about 20 minutes, maybe not in the middle of our interview, but in the middle of the show, the 102.9 signal will kick to baseball, and it's a baseball, as I told Marquise Munson, it's a program director's nightmare because you got rain, you got wind.
You can't set an allotted end time.
Oh, you nailed it right there in radio. I mean, Marquise has given me the sign because they moved games from Sunday to Saturday. We're going to play a doubleheader. We're going to start this one an hour early. There's a delay. And if there's a rain delay for program directors, this is the inside of radio because Barrett's been in radio. If there's a rain delay, it will make the program director, wherever he may be, job living HELL.
I had a doubleheader this weekend, Barrett. If that makes any sense to you,
dude. I worked when I got out of college. My first job in media right out of college was at Fox Sports South, and that was when we only had one Braves game a week. It was on Wednesday nights with Bob Rathman and Tom Paciorek. And man, when we had a rain delay on those Wednesday night games, it was brutal because we'd be at the studio till like 1 or 2 in the morning, just sitting there waiting. Oh God, it was awful. So I completely understand.
Yeah, so it's waiting for that person to call and to call the game, and it's like, okay, there's a lightning delay. What's 30 more minutes? Well, then what do you fill that 30 minutes? Because a lot of times your network will throw it back to the local affiliates. Well, then so it's like the program director never gets a minute off. It's like I said, it's a program director's nightmare. But anyway, listen, we got you on to talk Alabama football. And at 3:57 local time here in Tuscaloosa on a news dump Friday, Alabama finally released its coaching staff. Why were they trying to dump that on a Friday evening? Why could you not dump that on a Wednesday and Thursday and get a little momentum going into the weekend?
I have no idea. I have no idea. Did they know that the Sarkisian thing would be ridiculed? I mean, maybe, but it's not like that wasn't known anyway.
Sure.
I never understand. I mean, I know sometimes there are reasons. Like John Chavis, when he went from LSU to Texas A&M, there were contractual reasons for them to never. I don't think they ever actually formed. And that was 5 years ago, whenever it was. So. Yeah, I mean, I know there's sometimes situations like that, but there's not in this case that I'm aware of. So why did you wait so long, and why did you choose to do it when nobody cares? I mean, people are going out for the weekend. I've never understood that. It's not like people aren't going to know who your coaches are, right? Like, and it's not like they don't already know because coaches are out on the road recruiting. Recruits know who they are. Their parents know who they are. Their friends know who they are. What's the point? Like, I just don't get it. I don't understand it. It's not like people were surprised to see who was on the Alabama staff. I guess that the reason is you have to sort of get through the second national signing day. You sort of have to get through the NFL coaching hire circuit so you can have people interview if they need to, like Todd Grantham did, with the Bengals. So I guess that's the reason. But, I mean, again, it's not like people didn't know Steve Sarkisian was on Alabama's staff before, and had he gotten an NFL job within the last, week or two, it's not like people wouldn't know that either. So I just don't get it. I don't understand.
If we would go back, because Barrett's been a part of this program for many, many years, and we always talk generally on Mondays. If we go back last year and we pull an interview when Tosh LaPoy was made the defensive coordinator, we automatically gave the stamp of approval and said, oh, okay, if he's good enough with Nick, he's good enough for all of us, right? And I pretty much said that I'm not going to give that automatic stamp. I don't think this Pete Golding hire is a home run. He may be a superstar up and coming, but I don't know if I can just give that stamp of approval last year. We gave it with Tosh, and we sort of got snake bit because he wasn't the guy that everybody thought he was going to be. Pete Golding, in my opinion, I don't know if it's a home run hire.
I think that's fair. I think it's fair to not necessarily rubber stamp your approval on assistant coaching hires for Alabama because of what happened last year. And it's crazy to think that because, for the most part, things from an outward standpoint looked fine on the coaching staff from how the coaching staff looked publicly, but obviously we all know how things went behind the scenes. So, I'm with you on that. He's relatively inexperienced. After what happened, you have to wonder, okay, is Nick Saban really making the wise decision here? Or is he going to be involved? How involved will he be, especially after what happened last year with an experienced defensive coordinator? So I think that's fair. Is that on Nick Saban? Yeah, it's on Nick Saban. I think that, you trust Alabama to be fine and be competing for a national championship, but do you trust all of these coordinator hires to work out and these assistant coaching hires to work out? No. I mean, you shouldn't. That doesn't say they won't. In fact, most of them probably will be fine. But I think, like you said, Tosh Lufoy last year sort of erased the idea of just saying, okay, it'll be fine, moving on. That's kind of irresponsible based on what happened last year. And, Golding might be fine. In fact, he probably will be fine. But probably isn't definitely. And I think that's where that conversation should end, at least right now in the offseason.
Well, and see, here's the thing, and this is what we've been kind of discussing today, is when we begin to look at this 2019 schedule for Alabama that will start 194 days in your town, it's sort of like this year. I don't know if you're going to know that you have issues until you get up against the semifinal opponent, or if you make it that far, the SEC championship, the semifinal opponent, and then the final game. I don't know if you're going to know that you have problems. So everybody's going to go, hey, look, he's great. Yeah, for the first month and a half of the season because you're playing New Mexico and Duke and, the South Carolina might be a little bit of a challenge. But you're not going to know that you have problems until you get deep into that schedule before it's probably too late.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened in 2018. And I remember, I think it was probably a couple of weeks leading up to the LSU game. I never thought LSU was great, but it's LSU and they're physical and they're tough and whatever, being in Death Valley stuff. And I remember saying, hey, look, tell it to you. Hey, it's great that Alabama's blowing teams out, but, Tua's going to have to play a fourth quarter. Like, he's going to have to do that. You're going to have to be at least marginally tested at some point, because if you're not, then you're really, and no matter how talented you are as a team, you're not going to be ready for mentally how that, impacts you, affects you as a team, because it does change from year to year. So, I think that's a real concern. In fact, I'd go as far as to say, I think that was Alabama's downfall this year, is the fact that, when Georgia punched him in the mouth, it took a while for him to rebound. When Clemson punched him in the mouth, They didn't. They had nothing. And those were the only two times it happened. And it has to be more than that. You don't want it to be as scary as Georgia, and you don't want it to be as much of a train wreck as it was against Clemson. But you do have to have those moments to grow as a team. And Alabama didn't have that in 2018. And you're right, the way the schedule shapes up, it doesn't look like it's going to happen in 2019. So Nick Saban better find a way to recreate it, because that didn't happen in 2018. And I think that might be one of his most important, teaching points and talking points this offseason.
Barrett, I'm always trying to juggle whether I should ask you about articles on other websites, because you wear a lot of different hats. Okay, you're on Sirius XM, Channel 84, which is ESPNU college channel on Channel 84 on the satellite channel, CBSSports.com. But I'm going to ask it if I shouldn't have, then maybe I'll back up.
No, that's fine.
But ESPN.com released their Football Power Index poll. And I always like these little analytics of looking at 2019. They've got 10 teams from the SEC in the top 20. 10. 10 in the top 20. I mean, Barrett, are you buying? Can the SEC make this little push to maybe not just, having some quality, but quantity as well? 10 out of the top 20.
No, that's insane. Like, that's certifiably insane. That, to me, look, I don't really like those FPI things. I don't think that they solve anything. Same thing with the S&P Plus and all those analytics in the offseason. They factor in a bunch of things that should not be factored in, and they discount things that are impossible to judge from a metric standpoint. Coaching continuity, the ability for a coaching staff to gel, what players that are younger have done to improve upon themselves. A lot of that stuff's on returning starters. Well, are your returning starters any good? Because that matters a lot. So I'm always kind of hesitant to put anything into that. But I think in that case and in a lot of these teams' cases, I mean, look at the S&P Plus. They have LSU in the top 5. I mean, come on. Then that happens with that metric every single offseason, including the one previous, which was, anti-LSU all the way the first time in about a decade that's been the case. So, I mean, to me, it's just that's basing it on where the talented football players are. And the talented football players are in the SEC. Are those talented football players going to win national championships and going to compete at the highest level? No. I mean, every single year you have disasters. I mean, Tennessee 2 years ago did not have the talent to be an 0-8 team. They should have been better than that. Coaching was terrible. Auburn in 2012 was not a 3-9 caliber team. Like, they had way better talent than that. Notre Dame a few years ago was not a 4-8, level team. So it's you have to come together. You have to have issues. You have to solve those issues. And some teams do and some teams don't. And in the SEC, that means you're going to have some teams that are ultra talented that, just for whatever reason, don't have it click. And so 10 in the top 20, that's insane. Talent-wise, okay, sure, maybe. But that talent doesn't win you football games. It helps, and it's probably the most important factor, but it's not the only factor.
How slippery is this slope of immediate eligibility in college football?
Very slippery. I thought Justin Fields would be eligible because, we all know he got eligible or he left because he wanted playing time. That's indisputable. But the reason at least fit sort of the parameters that were sort of within the rule that currently exists. Tate Martell is a much more interesting, story and case because, he's reportedly, by our Dennis Dodd, is citing the Urban Meyer suspension and coaching change as the reason. Well, I mean, coaching changes are not part of the rule. Now, we can argue as long as the day is that, whether they should be. And I do think there should be more flexibility, if coaching changes happen. But according to the rule as written right now, that's not in there at all. And so I think this decision is really going to tell you where the NCAA is. And if you start having free agency, think about what that is. I mean, you could have a team go on pseudo probation. I think Penn State had 13 kids in the portal at one point. If all 13 of those kids leave, James Franklin's team is on probation from a scholarship standpoint. Like, that's a pretty serious fine. Think about that. How many scholarships you'd lose. If you cheated your tail off, you wouldn't lose that many scholarships. So, there's that. There's the idea that there still has to be some sort of structure. In the NBA and the NFL, and those are all different sports, I get it. Major League Baseball, you have some structure. Major League Baseball has the service time. The NFL has the 4 or 5 year deals, a 5th-year option if you're a first-round pick. It's still an employer-employee relationship to a point. And if you have full free agency, you're swinging yourself in completely the opposite direction if you're college football. And I don't know how to, I'm all for and always of the belief that coaches need to figure all this stuff out. They make the millions of dollars. Coaches need to figure this out. But there's no way they can figure this out. If you have no idea when your players are leaving or who's coming or who's going, you can't build a roster. And so, that's not a rich man's problem. That's just a problem that we should not put ourselves into as a sport because there's no way to fix it and there's no way to go back once you do it.
Go join those 79,000 SEC fans that follow Barrett Sallee. Find him on the Twitter account, Barrett Sallee. Find it there, cbssports.com, cbssports.com. Also on SiriusXM, College 84. Barrett Sallee, as always, thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a great week, man.
Thanks, Ryan. You too.